Welcome everyone to Driving Transportation Forward, real-world data solutions. And truly real-world because we do have 3 different DOTs here joining us as guest speakers today. Really excited for our presenter introductions. I will hand things over to Jolene to kick things off.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name's Jolene. I'm the transportation sales team lead here at SAFE, so I work primarily with DOTs, airports, port, and rail. I'll hand it over to you, Carmen.
Yeah, hello again. My name is Carmen Cater, East Coast, Connecticut, work for the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I'm an information technology analyst, and I support a lot of the servers that run our FME instances, as well as Esri and various other cloud software.
All right, my name is Mark Counts, and I'm the chief. I both manage the systems of today, and I'm creating the systems of tomorrow, which is starting to integrate and include more stakeholders, hence the leveraging of FME and helping develop better, tighter standards.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I work here at the West Virginia DOT. I work a lot with our HBMS unit, working a lot with the LRS unit, just kind of jack of all trades, really.
Hi, I'm Reshma Joy. I'm a GIS Program Analyst 3 at the LRS Service Unit at WVDOT. I manage the LRS data and also the current FME workbenches. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all 5 of you. Really excited to hear these 3 different use cases here today. I'll also note that we do have Dave joining us on the back end here today, ready to support with any questions that you might have during the webinar. So feel free to use that questions tab on the bottom right to ask any questions you might have for our presenters as we go along here. And the chat, keep letting us know where you are tuning in from there. You can also share emoji reactions to the webinar, the content as we go along. Feel free to use that react button. We love to see those, how everyone's feeling throughout. And then lastly, I'll note if you do have any audio or video issues during the webinar, you can click that help button on the bottom left for 4 simple steps to take. Our peak of data and AI is coming to Seattle, Washington in just a few weeks' time. We hope to see you all there. And in terms of an agenda for today's webinar, I'll take us through here. Firstly, we're going to hear an introduction by Jolene to today's topic and why you're all here today, what you'll get out of the webinar. And then from there, we'll be passing things over to the CTDOT for their use case on FME and ArcGIS, dynamic mapping and automation. Excited to hear more about that. And then from there, we'll be hearing from Mark at CALTRANS on digital products catalog and also the DWG to DGN format conversion. So a couple different use cases with FME there. And then lastly, West Virginia will be showing us validations of LRS data. To wrap us up, we'll be going through some resources and next steps between Jolene and I, and then we will be going into a live Q&A session. So once again, any questions, please do get those into the panel as we go along here. All right, so at this point, I will prompt our presenters if they can please turn off their webcams just to save on some bandwidth for the remainder here. And I'll pass things over to Jolene for our introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today to review some real-life examples of how FME is used to improve some common data workflows. First off, again, big thank you to amazing presenters today for showcasing how they have optimized road network management, fleet tracking, and real-time data exchange. So here's what we'll learn today. Automation, of course, is a big function of FME. Manual tasks and updates can be time-consuming and error-prone, and in today's world, real-time data updates are really crucial. Integrating data, of course, is equally as important, whether that's integrating your CAD and GIS or live sensor data. We believe data should flow effortlessly. We will also learn about techniques to analyze traffic patterns, route efficiency, and infrastructure planning, again, through these real-world use cases in fleet management, public transit, and road maintenance. Quickly looking here at some common data challenges we see and solve in transportation. As mentioned earlier, disconnected data sources and inconsistent formats can make it really challenging to evaluate and report on data. Data silos hinder efficiency and visibility, making it really challenging for different departments to work together. So whether that's internal or external, working with the public, working with your customers, vendors, disconnected data can be costly and time-consuming to address if done through custom programming. And that's really where FME comes in, providing a user-friendly, no-code solution. When your data isn't connected, you're really left with slow reporting. And again, without automation, again, manual updates can leave you with outdated or potentially wrong data. But there is a better way with FME. So with FME, we can automate transportation data workflows, we can break down data silos and ensure accurate real-time insight for better mobility and infrastructure planning. Quickly looking at our data support here, we really are the only all data AI data integration platform. We're known for support of spatial data, but we support over 500 different data types. So from your GIS, your CAD, your BIM, to 3D data and mapping, to business intelligence or modern technologies like AR and VR. In addition, we can connect to anything that offers a publicly available REST API. So there really are lots of different options. And all of these connectors are included in our core product. If you're not familiar with FME, it's really one platform with two core technologies. So on the left there, you will see FME Form. It's really a visual drag and drop interface. This is your desktop workbench. You will see it offers readers, transformers, and writers that are used to create your data integration workflows. That's really your authoring environment. And on the right, you'll see FME Flow, and that's where you can publish these workflows. There you can automate them, create time schedules, set up triggers, notifications, directory watches, or even create flow apps that can be used as a web application so they can be accessed through a browser and help with things like data submission or self-service data access for non-FME users. I will now hand it over to Carmen for our first FME use case.
Yeah, hello everybody again. Carmen Cater here representing Connecticut Department of Transportation. And I'd like to go over a particular use case, one of many, tens, easily hundreds of FME implementations that we've used at our agency in terms of automating and streamlining our data pipelines throughout the agency. So the topic of conversation today as it pertains to our agency is the bus service that we provide to the residents of our state of Connecticut. Connecticut DOT operates the largest bus operation in Connecticut, primarily serving a lot of the urban areas. So if you're familiar with any of the names, Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, New Britain, but of course, many of the rural areas need bus service as well. So there's over 9 independent bus transit providers as well that all seamlessly tie into our over 7 divisions of CT Transit, providing a seamless experience for the bus ridership of Connecticut. Now, what we wanted to do was have up-to-date, accurate, and authoritative data sets that management and leadership could go to when needing to make decisions about things such as bus shelters, the levels of ridership at particular bus locations, bus stops, bus routes. And it's not anything new. Connecticut DOT has been mapping the bus routes and bus stops across the state for many years, long before I ever came to the agency. But what they wanted was a better solution in terms of making sure that the data was kept up to date. And this project hit my desk, and the first thing I said was, how's it currently being done? And the previous process was to use a GTFS, and I'll get into that in just a second. That's a data standard that a lot of the bus transit providers make their data available in. But there was a GTFS geoprocessing tool in ArcGIS Pro, but that was a manual process. So every single time you wanted to refresh the data that you're seeing in your map, you would have to re-download the data sets from the bus transit providers' websites and do a bunch of clicking and extracting of zip files and whatnot, and run it through the geoprocessing tool just to get an up-to-date snapshot of the data. And our agency now has FME, right? So being one of the experts in the agency using FME and developing solutions, I said, yeah, we can absolutely do this. It's going to be a 2-part solution, right? We're going to use FME Form to implement all of the logic. We're going to connect to the data sets that are made publicly available. We can download those data sets, we can extract it, we can make transformations, we can enhance it, and then we can load it into the enterprise geodatabase by ArcGIS. And once that logic and workspace is developed and complete, the final piece is to automate it, right? So that we don't have to go in and manually click this thing every single time we want to see updated data. And that's where the second part comes in. We take our workspace developed in FME form, we click the button on the top, we publish it up to FME Flow, set the schedule, and at that point, it's hands off the wheel, data ETL is driving itself, and very little we have to do. Now, this is all possible because of a data standard that was developed many years ago. I believe it was Google in partnership with various DOTs across the United States and possibly the globe. And it's just simply a data standard so that all of the bus transit providers who are making their data available to DOTs and the public in general, think of even app developers who are creating maps to better serve customers, it's helpful to have the data all in one standard. And so all I'm highlighting here is on the right-hand side, the data model diagram that illustrates all of the relationships between the various tables, such as the stops table, stop times, fare information, highlighting all of the primary keys, foreign keys, how you're going to join up those data tables together so that you can derive the insight that you're ultimately looking for. And FME form allows you to do this, no problem. It's very seamless. We use things such as joiners and feature mergers. So essentially, you're just clicking them together, dragging them, dropping them, and the joins are made. Our solution currently has 10 different data feeds, all pulling from the publicly available internet, the bus transit providers' websites make available to us. And the awesome thing about the solution that we were able to build in FME form is that we were able to abstract away the logic into what are called custom transformers. And I'm going to go into that in just the next 2 slides. But it's really cool because even though there's only 10 providers right now in Connecticut that we know of who make their data sets available live on the internet in this GTFS format, because we were able to use these custom transformers through FME form, as soon as more providers make their data available, we can literally just open up the workspace, plug it into the custom transformer, and because they're using the same GTFS data standard, all of the logic holds, and off you go. It's literally just take the URL, put it into the GTFS reader, hit save, republish it to FME Flow, and off you go. It's just going to work seamlessly, and no major overhauls have to be done. So it's really cool that we can abstract out and reduce the duplication of logic through custom transformers. And the way the workspace works, I'm diving in now into the details, and what you would actually see if you were to open it up in FME form is those 2 yellow rectangles that I'm highlighting there. Those are the 2 techniques that I used in order to get the data into the workspace. And this is just 1 or 2, one on the top, one on the bottom, 2 different bus transit providers. So there's 10 of these all together, but it's just a small little snapshot. And the one on the top is an out-of-the-box GTFS reader that Safe Software has made available to the transportation industry, which is amazing. Very little work you have to do there. Just take the URL, paste it in, and it's going to do the heavy lift. So it downloads the zip file, it extracts it, breaks it apart into its various different text files, which are CSVs, and then you can just start transforming your data and doing whatever you need to. And then the solution on the bottom there is using a very powerful transformer capable of doing many things. That's called the HTTP caller. And so essentially you take any URL you want, plug it into that, and you can fetch data sets in any type of standard. And then you see I'm breaking it out. And again, I'm looking at the bottom yellow rectangle. Then I'm breaking it out into its various different tables from that GTFS model you saw on the slide before. So now that the data is read in, what do we do next? So I'm highlighting here now these 2 green rectangles in the top right. Those are those custom transformers that I was talking about. Version 1 of this workspace was, let's get the logic in there so that I can do what I need to do to create this data set for the bus stops and the bus routes. And once I had that made, I literally just held down the mouse, dragged it over all of those transformers, clicked and hit turn this into a custom transformer because I have 10 different data feeds that I want to apply the same logic to. And so we have 1 custom transformer for getting the routes and 1 for getting the stops. And I'm highlighting on the bottom that long strip image there on the bottom. That's if you were to click into the route custom transformer, I'm using the feature merger to perform all of those joins between the various tables that you saw in the GTFS model. And again, FME makes it very easy for you. No SQL code has to be written. You just use whether you want to use the joiner or the merger. I tend to like the merger. I'm just biased towards it. But yeah, you can see it's pretty straightforward, right? You just line them all up, drag them all in, and out's going to pop your final data set, right? In a couple slides from now, I'm going to show you some enhancements that I made to that data set, but really that's the meat of it right there. And now what you're looking at on the bottom is the behind the scenes of the stop custom transformer. So remember, there's just two. There's the route custom transformer and the stop custom transformer. The route one was pretty straightforward, just a bunch of joins. And the stop custom transformer here, though, has a little more interesting logic. You can still see the joins happening on the left, those feature joiners and feature mergers. But I thought I wanted to highlight something cool here, which is the fact that you can script your own Python code and bring it into your FME form workspace to do basically whatever it is you can imagine that you could do in Python. And I'll make it very brief, but what happened is I delivered the solution and they go, oh, this is great, Carmen. We'd love to see for every bus stop which routes are servicing it. I say, okay, no problem. I could do that in FME. I know there's going to be a couple of transformers that can make that magic happen. So I do it. I deliver it. They say, oh, man, that's great. But can we have those routes listed in order? And in particular, I'd like them to be in a natural sort. Now, that's a very particular kind of sort. So I say, okay, well, I know how to do it in Python. So I script it in Python, bring it in, plug it into the Python caller, and there you go. I was able to deliver the solution. In less than a day, I turn around, I say, okay, fine, here's your sorted list of routes for every bus stop, and it's in a natural sort because they have weird names. The bus routes can have special characters and whatnot. So they needed the natural sort. So a really powerful transformer. I just wanted to highlight here, the Python caller. So now that you've seen the logic for the bus routes and the bus stops, we're just going to do a little bit of enhancing to the data sets. If you look at these two images, the dark purple band on the top, that is the bus stops. And then the one below, the lighter purple, that's the data enhancing pipeline for the bus routes. And you can see on the far left of each of them, you've got those 10 data feeds, literally just dragging, dropping into the next transformer. So here what's happening is we're reprojecting into the Connecticut state plane coordinate system so that it plays well with our base map. I'm taking the stop layer, I'm intersecting it with our Connecticut municipalities layer so that we know for each stop which municipality it resides in. I'm renaming a bunch of fields using the attribute manager to adhere to our data standards, best practices, and guidelines at the Connecticut DOT. And I'm also taking some fields and mapping from integer values over to their string equivalencies because the GTFS standard sometimes codifies their values. And so I just take a transformer from FME, I say, here's the code, here's the string equivalence, plug it in, and out pops the English representation of what the data actually means. And then on the far where you see it ending, that's it. That's the end of the flow. So those two final transformers on the far right, that's writing into our GIS Enterprise Geodatabase. Last step is to take this thing and turn on the automate button, right? That's what we wanted here. It was a hands-off solution that was going to keep our data up to date, accurate, and authoritative so that people can wake up in the morning, open up the map, and start making decisions and gleaning insight from an accurate data set, not having to worry about when was the last time this thing was updated, right? Because transit providers are making updates to their routes and stops and fare and agency information all the time. Maybe it's not conveyed to DOT in a timely manner. This solves that problem. Two-part solution, right? We've developed it in FME form. We now publish it up to FME Flow. And Connecticut DOT has our own instance running up in an Azure virtual machine. So we just click the publish button. And we like to add some nice metadata to all of our solutions. So FME Flow allows for this beautiful representation using Markdown language of a description of what this product is actually doing. So at DOT, we've implemented this template that contains author information, customer information. If you're looking at the image on the left-hand side, where's the data coming from? Where's it going? What does it do? And then the image on the right, I'm just saying, hey, I want this thing to run every single day at 20 o'clock or however military time people say it. I say 8 p.m. And this is just one way to automate a workspace, right? This is pretty much as simple as it gets. It's a schedule. But FME Flow also has various other options such as automations using webhooks to trigger it when some other event occurs, as well as web applications where you provide your customer with a public URL and they can upload CSVs and Excels and trigger a run whenever they need it. So we use all of those at DOT, but this particular solution, all we needed was a schedule. And now you're looking at the final result. These are the 10 different transit providers color-coded on the map. We basically took the data, handed it over to the enterprise GIS team and said, do your magic. And so this FME Flow informed solution is lifting over 13,500 stops, over 1,500 routes. So that again, the data is up to date. We don't have to do anything, hands off, and we can be confident every day we wake up, data is up to date and accurate and decisions can be made. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and how Connecticut DOT has used FME Form and Flow in order to automate and streamline one of our data pipelines when it comes to mapping bus routes and bus stops in the state of Connecticut. Again, I'm Carmen Cater. Pleasure to present this to you, and I hope you enjoy the presentations that follow. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic, Carmen. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Really appreciate your insights there. All right, so next up, I'm excited to introduce Mark Counts from CALTRANS, and I'll pass over the baton here to Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. And good job, Carmen. I really enjoyed your presentation. So my name is Mark Counts, and I'm the Chief Officer of Surveying Systems, as we've already established. We're going to take a look at project delivery within, like I like to say, I'm going to take you behind the firewall of Caltrans and see how FME is helping us do our work a little more efficiently, definitely more intelligently, and with better connected workflows. All right, let's get into this. All right, the first topic we're going to cover two topics today. One is the digital products catalog, and the second topic is the DWG converter. So Caltrans is on our BIM for I journey. We've been going on it for probably about the better part of a decade, and we've been evolving. And really for us, BIM for I is just figuring out ways to better connect our people and our processes with people we serve, with the public, using technology, using sort of cultural improvements, and just really trying to connect the people, the workflows, and the data in a way that produces a better outcome for California citizens and highway users. So as we've been going through this process and trying to come up with again, more intelligent and more connected ways of bringing our data together, we realized fairly quickly that we're also going to have a way to unify our standards. In other words, like another way to think of it is before you centralize your data, it might be a wise idea to consider how to centralize your standards. So that's what kicked off this idea of creating a digital products catalog, where we would take our digital standards and we focus first on areas that have been scientifically managed already, such as DTM topographic processing, where we have very rigid standards in the field for data collection and data processing, to see if we could then take those standards, bring them into a database, and do something with those standards once they're in that database. So here's a nice little pithy phrase: a unified experience of digital truth requires clear, centralized standards integrated across the organization and its tech stack to enable collaboration and ensure a lasting digital legacy. So that's really the heartbeat of the digital product catalog. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so as we've been diving deeper and deeper into BIM for I, we're realizing that one size doesn't fit everybody everywhere all the time. Say 50, 60 years ago, I can now fit a survey crew with all the same tools, and no matter where they're at in California, and that would work because that's all there really was. But even as just my program has evolved over the last 50 years, and we're realizing one size doesn't fit everyone all the time, we're also now integrating data from different stakeholders, or what I like to say, project delivery partners. So we've got construction engineers now collecting data. We've got different data types coming in from licensed engineers that are designing roadways and structures and things of that nature. So as we're looking at all of it, we're realizing, holy moly, we've got an influx of data. So how do we have what's called rails with flexibility? How do we still have standards, but then recognize this reality that one size doesn't fit everybody everywhere all the time? That's a tough problem to solve. And so that's where FME actually is as one of our great partners in solving that problem. And so another way to put it is different people need sort of different tools or different access, or they need to interact with the data in different ways. And we like to use this phrase in a way that makes it feel like home. It's tough from a change management standpoint point to bring new things in if it doesn't feel like home to your users. So what we're trying to do is capitalize that feeling of home in things that they already know and figure out how to bring that into an alignment with the new stuff. Yet we cannot give on our standardization at the same time. So if we're going to seamlessly connect our data, we got to figure out how to have Rails with flexibility that honors our tight standardization, but also recognizing different needs, different people, different times, but it also still needs to feel like home for all of our users. And then here comes FME. So through a grant from FHWA, the Advanced Digital Construction Management Systems grants, we were able to pilot and prototype what we're aligning as basically our ADCMS FME application portfolio. And to date, we've got 2 different applications that we've developed using FME. And one is called the Digital Products Catalog, and that's where we're centralizing all of the standards to do something with those standards. And then the second one is, okay, now that we've actually centralized those standards and we're making template products with them, can we do anything else with FME? Now that we've got all the standardization documented, digitized, and centralized, what can we do with it? And then that's where we started stepping into things like data translations and things like that. All right. So I'm going to drop back to this a little bit later. I just wanted to give you a snapshot. This is the user interface for the ADCMS Digital Products Catalog. So we will drop back to this interface for a demo. And so let's move on from here. And then as I do the live demo, we'll get to see how the tools work. All right. Before the DPC, as the Chief of Office Surveying Systems, I manage all of the CAD templates, the geospatial templates, and the analytical templates. Essentially, for our users, what that looks like is the ARC Enterprise portfolio, the Trimble portfolio, and the Autodesk portfolio, as well as the MicroStation portfolio. So we have a myriad of different applications that my office supports across all 4 portfolios. And that can be a bit onerous. So if we wanted to make an edit to, say, one attribute on one asset in the field collection schema, by the time our office is done updating the entire portfolio of applications, we can make that same edit upward in the ballpark of 5, 6, 7 times per asset. And we've got from our normalized feature class data dictionary about 150 assets. Once it gets into CAD, that gets expressed into over 2,000 different experiences of that normalized feature class. So what that means is in CAD, we have a lot of layers and we have a lot of different experiences of that normalized feature data dictionary. And coming from the person that has done quite a bit of this work and my staff that does this work, it's very easy to make a mistake when you're trying to apply the same edits across different portfolios. So when we looked at this, the idea of centralizing our standards, we thought, I wonder if we could use FME to create this experience where we make the edit one time on a database, and then we can apply it through the rest of the portfolios automatically, which saves time for the configurator from making all those edits, but also I think what we're seeing is a huge reduction in errors. Unless we make a mistake on the first one, but then again, if you catch that, it's not that hard to then go back and correct that mistake and then reapply it across the platforms. And so this is really the heartbeat of the DPC is how do we, now that we've centralized our digital standards, how can we now start to create more templates, offer more template support? So that way we have one button sort of experience for our users or the folks that are managing the templates. That's our user base. Yep, and then that gets into this one button, but we will do a little bit of a live demo later. And so this is FME, this is now behind the scenes, right? So this is what our users see, the folks that are our data stewards, and then for all of our FME fans out there, this is what you would see. And I'm sure this slide is probably a lot more exciting to you than this slide. So we'll just, I'm not gonna go into too much detail on this slide. I'm sure that our audience recognizes very quickly what we're looking at. But this is basically our feature code library. So that's the schema that we use when we collect data. And what we've done is we've now, since we've centralized the standards, we've basically created the FME Flow. So that way, when we update an asset, whether it's adding an asset, removing an asset, adding an attribute, modifying an attribute, removing an attribute, now with one click of a button, we can apply all those edits from the database using FME and actually export different versions of that feature code library. Now, somebody on this call might say, oh, hold on, Mark, why would I even want that? For CALTRANS, we've got different partners in project delivery. And remember what I said earlier, we need to create experiences that feel like home. That's part of the mission here. So my construction engineers who are learning how to use different types of geospatial technology to do their workflows in more efficient manners in collecting data, they don't experience the world the same way a land surveyor does. They experience the world through something called bid items, right? Whereas in the land survey experiences the world through something called feature codes. And so what we needed to do was we needed to be able to have a tool that could allow us to empower both user sets to experience the world the way they're used to, yet on the back end, make sure all the standards are tightly knit together. And that's what you're looking at here. So this is a great, so this window right here, what we're looking at here is this is a way for, say I'm partnering with the district, there's 12 districts in California for CALTRANS. And just to give you the scope of our organization, across California, we've got some in the ballpark of 3,000 engineers in the office. We have some in the ballpark of 4,000 engineers in the field, and some in the ballpark of about 600 land surveyors. And I don't know if we still hold our rank as the largest, second largest, but we're somewhere in the top 5 of the largest land surveying companies in North America. So the scope of what we support here, if we're going to provide rails with flexibility, if we're going to try to embrace this idea that one size doesn't fit everyone everywhere all the time, yet still maintain standards, we needed ways that we could then integrate or ingest the individual needs. I'm going to give you a great example. We've got a program called Middle Needs when it comes to data collection. So what we've done is using FME create this importer where we could build out that feature code library in an interface that the district feels more comfortable in. They could provide that FXL. Now we can upload that into the database using FME. We can then apply all those edits, and now we have that all centralized, and it's available to the other, say, 11 districts, right? If they're going to be doing middle mile broadband work. And this is all automated. So as the person who used to do this stuff manually, this has been just a huge blessing and also a huge gain in efficiency and quality standards. Okay, moving on. So this is, again, another FME workflow here that we can take a look at. And I don't want to get too caught up in the details, but what you're looking at here is this is what it looks like when we update our production database with the data from the staging database. So in that last screen, we upload the feature code library from, say, a district that needs a specific need met. And then that goes into the staging database. And then we can go from the staging database once we're happy, and we can update the production database here. All right, so remind me, Elizabeth, we'll get back to this. Just a quick live demo if we got a little bit of time at the end. But I want to get into this DWG to DGN converter, because this has also been a huge blessing to not just the survey program, but the project delivery program as a whole at CALTRANS. All right, so what this is, at CALTRANS, we are what some people refer to us as a dual platform agency. And what that means is that we do both survey and design work in Autodesk products and in MicroStation products. So what that also puts an expectation on certain stakeholders in the project delivery circle to be able to translate data back and forth. Now, traditionally, what we've done is we've relied on in-application converters. But over the last, probably I'd say 6 years, those in-house application converters have become less reliable. They've taken a longer time. And as they're less reliable and taking a longer time, they lock up the interface of our users. So as our users trying to do work, they can't, because that particular application is hogging all the resources for the conversion. And when I say, Elizabeth, when I say this has been a sticking point, it's about a 20+ step process in application to go from DWG to DGN, okay? I'll say that again for those taking notes. About a 20-step process within the application to go from DWG to DGN. So working with our consultants, Cancel, in America known as CSDS, what we did was we said, okay, we're already got our standards centralized and they're accessible. Can we apply those into data conversion? And they said, well, let's give it a go. I think we can. So again, deploying FME and really leveraging the strengths that FME provides, we built this converter. And this has been a huge savings of time. And we're going to look at that in a huge, I think, improvement of culture. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. Here's that DWG to DGN workspace video, a quick look at the workspace. Again, we got more script here of how that workflow is going from left to right and a bunch of different calls, but I want to get to this part. So each manual transaction is basically saving about 15 minutes per transaction on average, because like I said, the out of application or in application process often doesn't give us a consistent output. It will fail in the middle of processing. And so we're estimating between 10 to 15 minutes per run is getting saved each time. And we've got an average loaded rate of about $200 an hour per user. So that comes up, what is it? That's crazy, right? $50 a transaction is getting saved right now using this tool. And these are the kinds of savings that might not be intuitive to certain agencies, especially me as a surveyor in project delivery. I'm learning a ton about FME. Over those last 18 months, I've just learned so much more about the power that's just been sitting here. And it's like, Elizabeth, it's kind of like a best kept secret, right? Watching Carmen just work the flows. I mean, there's a lot of power locked in this. And so what we've got right now is an estimate of about $250,000 saved just with this conversion tool. And the reason why so much is getting saved is, again, it works every time. It's reliable output. Every time it outputs, it's actually what it needs to be. So there's a lot more confidence in the final product. And lastly, this is all done through an internet browser, which means it frees up the application. So now not only are we saving time on the conversion itself, but our employees are now getting back to work in their application. So they don't have to wait for that Civil 3D application to finish the process before it can get before they can get back to work. So this is huge. And for us, that's one of our sort of KPIs is through innovation, how are we saving the taxpayer valuable resources so that we can put those resources to work somewhere else? And so I think this is just a great example of that. All right. And then the last thing too is we got to talk about the return on investment when it comes to culture. Here in Caltrans, again, I mentioned we're a dual platform, and unfortunately what that means is sometimes there's like a little bit of a rivalry, right? Hey, Autodesk is better. Hey, MicroStation is better. And it's just, I don't know, there's something about that it's like humans, like, it's my team that's better, right? No, the Dodgers are the best. And then who knows, maybe if Carmen on the East Coast, he'd say the Dodgers aren't that great, right? There's something about that. But what I love about this tool is it takes the air out of that balloon. Because now what we're doing is we're putting tools into people's hands. And if there's any sort of riff, any sort of kind of team riff, what this does is it allows anybody now to do the conversion. It doesn't get bottlenecked in surveys because this isn't just converting the data, but it's also pulling the datum. And in California, the datum is really important because our crustal movement shifts. So for everyone on the call, by the time you just think about it like this, in California, generally speaking, right, and not in a uniform direction, but parts of our state move at about the rate of the growth of your fingernails. So every time you go to cut your fingernails, I want you to think about us. Hey, California just moved that much, right? And so for us, datums are critical. And that's one of the biggest areas that we've got to make sure we're maintaining high quality. This converter takes all the guesswork out of that because it assigns the right datum to the right drawings. In addition, we can do more than one drawing at a time. We've been doing batch files up to about 50. Yeah, so super excited about this tool. All right, so as promised, we've got a nice live demo going, and I'm just going to jump right to our DPC application. We've got a nice security protocol there that's synced up with our single user sign-on. And so here, I just wanted to show you a few things. This is where all of our, I say, digital standards live, right? So anything here that we wanted to essentially collect or ingest into our data systems, this is where all that lives. Now, where you're going to be super interested in this is we can take all of these standards and now we can actually generate, with one click of a button, we can generate templates to support project delivery. So if we say I wanted to come in here and somewhere in Hydro, right, we had an issue, we wanted to update something, an attribute with the canal bottom, no problem. We go through in the staging database, we update everything that we need to update for all the different assets. And then with one click of a button, we click that, boom, the Civil 3D template gets created. We need a feature code library for the field to use to match that Civil 3D template. Click feature code library generator, boom, it's done. Hey, you know what? But we also want to bring this into our GIS enterprise. No big deal, right? Just click the generate GIS, boom. So now with just 3 clicks of a button, we have a Civil 3D template, we have a feature code library, a data dictionary for the field, and we have a GIS schema that's all one for one, reflecting every single edit or add that we have through the interface. And with that, I think that wraps up our live demo. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I think we're ready for the next presenter.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time to show us those workspaces and demonstrate what you guys are up to over at CALTRANS. Next up here, I'm really excited to introduce Reshma and Margaret to the stage, who are going to be showing us West Virginia's use case using LRS data. over to you, Margaret and Reshma.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was a great presentation, Mark and Carmen. Today, we are going to talk about our approach to validating linear referencing system data using FME for HPMS submissions and LRS publications. Ensuring the accuracy and reliability of LRS data is critical for transportation agencies, especially when preparing submissions for Highway Performance Management Monitoring System, HPMS. Our process integrates FME's powerful data integration capabilities with dynamic rule management through Excel sheets. It allows efficient and adaptable data validation process. So over the next few minutes, we will provide an overview of this process and its benefits. LRS, the linear referencing system, is a method for spatial referencing in which the locations of features are described in terms of measurements along with a linear feature, such as a road network, or we can say LRS uses measures to locate events along a route, and events that occurs along the route are stored in an event table. Accurate LRS data is essential for various transportation applications, including asset management, safety analysis, and reporting. WVDOT always maintains a very good data quality. HPMS, the Highway Performance Monitoring System, is a national level highway information system, and it is a big data submission all DOTs have to do every year to the Federal Highway Administrations, or FHWA, ensuring that the data meets specific quality standards. Given the complexity and the volume of data involved, automating the QA/QC process is vital to maintain data integrity and meet submission deadlines. Using FME, we were able to streamline the QA/QC process and reduce manual effort. To enhance the flexibility of our validation process, we manage our QA/QC rules through an Excel spreadsheet. So how we start? In general, QA/QC is a long process. When we took over the HPMS process, our understanding of both the process and the associated data was limited. So based on the available documentations, we discovered that data source was in SQL database in parallel with the geospatial database. And cross-validation was needed to align the data. When it comes to validating our LRS data, we have over 70 layers and over 38,000 miles of route data. And the manual process was stressful. Inspired by Ohio DOT's presentation on how they use FME to do the validations and generating reports, we partnered with Logistic Inc. to implement FME at WVDOT. So by integrating FME with Excel-based rule management, it is a robust and adaptable QA/QC process. To provide a more detailed understanding, I will now hand over to my coworker, Margaret.
Hi. So right now we have about 175 validations in our Excel sheet, and we have them split more or less into two categories. We have our HPMS rules, which come directly from the LRS or directly from the HPMS, and we have our general rules. These are rules that we have decided are specifically important to West Virginia. Now, there is some overlap between what is considered HPMS versus what is considered West Virginia specifically, but we just feel that there are some validations that need to be run more often and across more than just what HPMS requires. We have our rules structured in if-then format, and we do this because it's easier to read, it's easier to write, and it's easier to understand if you weren't the one who wrote them, especially. We also have them separated based on layers. Now, layers are just how we separate the data. So for example, our route status is in a layer and our national functional class is in a different layer. So what happens is some of our rules are single layer, which just means they only look at one table. And some of them are cross layers, which means you have to look at several different things. And our cross-layer rules are probably our most important rules, just because they are the most complicated and the most time-consuming if you had to do them by hand. So next in writing our validations, we have this workspace here where after we edit the Excel document, we will run it through this FME workspace, and it does some rudimentary validations. So it'll just check for duplicates, make sure everything's filled out, make sure everything's formatted correctly, stuff like that. In addition, what it'll do is it'll turn the rule as it was formatted into a SQL statement to be used later. And the only reason we have our writing validations workspace separate than our running validations workspace is because we need to run the data, edit the data a lot more often than we would needing to change or add a rule. So we mostly do it for time reasons, but it is fantastic just for how we use it, having that distinction. So actually running the validations, this is just a snapshot of that workspace, just because there is so much that has to go into it. But essentially what we'll do is we are able to individually check what rule we want to run or what layer we're working with, just depending on the use case. And then we are able to use this workspace to pull that SQL statement we made in the other one. We are able to pull the data directly from the LRS, and then we are able to overlay that data in order to run the SQL statement against it. And that is how we are able to find out specific segments where there may be an error. So this workspace will make this results file, which is split into two different sections. We have our first section here, which will just tell you a general overview of what you ran in this iteration. So it'll tell you the rules that were run, and it'll also tell you just the general number of errors for that rule. And then the absolutely great part is the detail section, which is where we are able to go in and figure out exactly what is going on with that segment of road. So it'll tell you what rule was it violated, and it'll also tell you the route ID and the measurements, which is how we are then able to use our LRS system and examine the road a little more closely. But essentially what this does is it allows us to better QA, QC the data, because it's more accurate than doing it by hand, and it is so much faster than doing it by hand. And ultimately, as a result, is we just have better data, which is great for partially for reporting and the HPMS part of it, but it's also just good as the West Virginia DOT, having good data and being able to provide good data. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Reshma so she can start us off with what we learned.
To summarize, we have explored the importance of LRS data validations and how, using FME, we can streamline the process to ensure the data accuracy and consistency. The power of FME, by leveraging FME's powerful tools, we can effectively handle complex data validation tasks and reduce human error. And FME provides a much more user-friendly environment, and no coding knowledge is required. That is a big plus point. Smoother QA/QC process. We have over 100 validations, and it is really time-consuming. And with automation, we can ensure a smoother and more efficient quality check, and that way we can avoid human error. And the improved data quality in LRS publications. So data validation is a continuous process, and it's not just a one-time check, and it will prevent bad data from entering the system. And by having validation rules in place, it will improve the data quality. So FME improved data quality by automating validations and ensuring consistency and accuracy.
Another thing we've learned is we've noticed a culture change just within the WVDOT itself because of FME and because the reports that we are able to generate now. Nobody is blaming anybody else for any inconsistencies or incorrections in the data. So we are really able to work together to try and figure out what's going on, because there's not that aspect of, oh, it's your fault, it's like that, or so on and so forth. And I think that's just an incredible side effect that we have from just using FME. But yeah, thank you for having us, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Margaret and Reshma. We really appreciate your time and showing us your work with LRS publications. All right, so in terms of our next steps and resources, I will be handing things over to Jolene to get us started here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for those fantastic presentations and different use cases. Those are amazing to see. If you have FME or if you don't have FME and you would like to explore any additional use cases, I do encourage you to contact us. We're happy to showcase any proof of concepts or demonstrations, or if you already own FME and you have any labor or time-consuming workflows, we're happy to set up a tech talk as well, just to ensure you get the most out of FME. So on that note, I wanted to take a quick look here just at our licensing model. We do have two different licensing models, primarily being the perpetual licenses or the subscription. And I just quickly wanted to highlight our more popular subscription model. One of the things we at times hear is customers owning FME but not being able to use it because they are running out of licenses or running out of budget or whatever it might be. So the subscription model is really a more flexible, custom-tailored solution that offers scalability and unlimited access and easier budgeting to really suit all organizations of all sizes. And if you have existing licenses, you can even roll them into the solution. So again, if you would like to explore your options, please do reach out to me personally or through our website. If you are not familiar with SAFE, we have been around for 30 years now. We are headquartered in Surrey, BC, Canada, and we have been used in 128 countries and over 25,000 organizations. We also have a wide partner network of over 170 global partners that can offer professional services. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Excellent. So we just have linked some transportation-specific resources here to help you further your learning on other use cases within the industry. We have a blog on 8 others included, as well as a blog on linear referencing specifically, and an article to help you get started more with LRS, and a data integration for transportation with FME article as well. What I would recommend if you are wanting to take a look through these resources is just to, under apps and then handouts, you can download the slide deck there. And it's nice because, yeah, the links are hyperlinked, so you can just click through them in the slide deck. In terms of other resources here, we're all about free resources here at SAFE. Our FME Academy is home to instructor-led free training, and we have lots of upcoming and on-demand webinars as well. Next steps to take here today, we would love, as Jolene mentioned, please do get in touch with us. I'll actually send out a call out link here now, so you can click that handy button in case you do want to get in contact. You can click that button just to start an email, just as a streamlined way of doing that. And then also our FME Accelerator course. It's 90 minutes free of charge, no downloads required, and a great place to get started with the basics of FME. Claim your community badge if you're a member of our community. Here is today's code. I will drop that in the chat as well, just as a thank you for joining us today if you do collect those badges. If you aren't a member of the community, take a look. It's a great place to network with other users and experts alike. Once again, the Peak of Data and AI, this May 6th to 8th in Seattle, Washington. We do have some time remaining, a few minutes here for questions. So I will invite our presenters to join the stage with me and our Q&A support as well if they'd like. And we can take a look through together. I know we did get to most, if not all, of the questions in the questions tab there. But this is a good time to remind everyone too, if you do have a question top of mind, we will be chatting for a few minutes here, so feel free to drop it in. And yeah, if we don't get to it live during the end of this webinar, we will follow up by email as well. Awesome. Thanks everyone for dropping questions in. Maybe I'll just pass it over to the presenting team. Was there any questions that stood out that we might want to elaborate on or kind of bring to the stage to chat about live here? Did anyone have one in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go ahead and highlight a question that was given to me from Sam, and I thought it was a very smart question, which is, you know, are you just overwriting the data sets every single night? Because that puts a lot of load on the databases, and in our Esri enterprise geodatabase environment, that really racks up the adds and delete tables. We are fortunate to have automated compression scripts that run weekly that sort of knock out those adds and deletes. And because the operations are occurring overnight, we don't really notice any performance degradation during the day or anything of that nature. But we are working actively to construct composite primary keys for the bus route and bus stop tables. It's been some trial and error. We're working closely with the domain experts when it comes to the bus data, and we hope to be able to employ the change detector soon to really reduce the load on the database, as well as reduce the runtime of our workspace up on FME Flow. So Sam, I thought that was a great question, and feel free to follow up with me, hopefully, in a couple of days or a week, or, give us some time, but we may have a solution. And I don't know if you're implementing this at your agency, but maybe we can collaborate down the road sometime. So great question. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. And I did see a question come in for Mark. Is that one that we want to address live here from Joel? I don't know if you see it there, Mark, in the questions tab. What is the output format for your template FXL creator? Is it just an XML file? He's wondering. I might be having tech issues. We can definitely come back to that one whenever you're ready, Mark. Okay, we still have a couple minutes here. Was there any others that we would want to chat about, team? Or are we looking pretty well wrapped up here? Oh, I see from Mark in the chat there, he notes that, and I'll just bring this question on the screen here as well. It is an FXL file. Perfect. Awesome. Does anyone else have, just final call out to the team, any other questions we want to address live here? Are we all good to wrap up?
I mean, I'll address live just the one other question, just for the viewing pleasure of the audience. That was asked to me by Garrett Duffy, and he wanted to know if we used the GTFS reader from FME, out of the box. And short answer is yes. A few of the transit agency providers had some sketchy links, for lack of a better term, and so that was where I employed the other solution, which was to use the HTTP caller. But this solution was built a few months back. I mean, it's been a long project, wrapped up a few months back. And when I was preparing for this presentation, I opened it up, I started modifying it a little bit, and I said, hey, let me just take some of those URLs that I had to use the HTTP caller for, and just, why not? Let's see if it works with the GTFS reader, because it's a way cleaner solution. And it did. So if anyone out there has done something similar, I encourage you to, take those URLs, put them into the FME GTFS reader, and may work for you now. I believe it's on the transit provider's ends, though. Just something to do with like the URLs being secure, HTTPS versus HTTP, some sort of oddities that I couldn't really pin down at the time, but a nice, clean, easy solution using the HTTP caller if you can't get the other working for you.
Awesome. And I will also just bring Chelsea's question on the screen here. This will really come down to each individual DOT. I know sometimes there are privacy concerns with sharing out workspaces, not to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone already does know if they can share out their workspaces, feel free to chime in between our 3 DOTs, but that might be something we have to look into in terms of permissions to share.
Yeah, I see a question just came in from Kristen. Apologies if I'm, mispronouncing your name. I almost said Christian, but it looks like Kristen. No, not that I know of. Not that I know of. But again, I'm just the man who created the data ETL. So it's very possible there's another unit here at Connecticut DOT that is, investigating that, but not that I'm aware of. No, not that I'm aware of creating predictive models on the bus transit data.
Thanks, Carmen. So I know we are at the top of the hour here. I just want to extend a huge thank you to our entire presenting panel here today. We really appreciate your time in creating today's content and sharing it with our whole audience here. And thank you to our audience as well for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. If you do have a moment to fill out our webinar survey, we really appreciate any feedback. I think it's just like 2 of the multiple choice questions are required, so only takes a few seconds, and yeah, it helps us improve our program. But in the meantime, we hope you all have a great rest of your day ahead, and thank you so much for joining us today. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for having us.